Welcome to the webinar, Money and Me. We have Sara Money with us, who is the creator of Money and Me, and Heidi Jones of Bridges Community in Marion, Ohio, using Money and Me with her Getting Ahead graduates. I am Ruth Wyrick, and we want to thank you for joining this webinar. We offer webinars the first and third Thursdays of every month, and always topics that will provide you tools for your toolkit to reduce poverty in your business, your community, your organization. So I'm going to turn it over to Sara and give it to Sara and Heidi for the next hour. We will take questions at the end. Sara?
Thank you. Good morning for those of you in the time zone before noon. If you're on the East Coast, good afternoon. My name is Sara Money. I am in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology and communications from the University of New Mexico, and I received a master's in counseling from Webster University. I was the executive director for a nonprofit for 9 years, and now the director and developer of Money and Me. So that's a little bit about myself. And let me just talk a little bit about Money and Me and how it got started. Money and Me is a financial literacy education system that provides training and consulting for organizations that are inspired to help low-income people take control of their money and also their lives. And the way it got started, and I'll get into the system part, is while I was director of a nonprofit, it was a faith-based nonprofit here in Albuquerque, we received a grant to help low-income people with financial literacy. And so I began looking at a lot of curriculums and recognizing that most of the curriculums that I was viewing were written for people that already have money and they were needing to know how to manage it. And I was really looking for curriculums for the people that are living in a survival mode, where they're living paycheck to paycheck. They might be receiving assistance, and I just couldn't seem to find it. So that's how it got started, is I couldn't find anything available. But with my background in psychology and counseling, I've also worked for the state of New Mexico. I did income support for many years. I did a lot of home visits as I was director of this nonprofit. And I realized that there's a different language and culture, which is what the AHA process speaks to so much, that needed to be addressed. So what I started doing was just creating a simple budget worksheet, and I will be showing that soon, and that is the tools. It has now evolved into an entire workbook with a money kit and certificate. What I wanted to do was make something that was simple and duplicatable. So if I could teach one person how to do the program, I could teach 100 people or 1,000 people. And so then we created PowerPoints, the technology to assist. And then I looked at training. And what I had happening in Albuquerque is I had a lot of middle income people wanting to come alongside and volunteer, but they needed to be culturally sensitive to low income people. And now that's what the AHA process does, and the Bridges Out of Poverty do so well. But I had put together a mini training just trying to get people to recognize cultural differences. This system is complete, so organizations do not have to reinvent the wheel. That's one of the things that I feel I'm very gifted at, is putting together systems that people can follow, because each time you're trying to figure something out, you're using time that could be spent doing other things. The training that I've provided, it's an online training. I've created an environment called Money and Me Online University, and organizations can purchase training packages for their staff or volunteers. They can purchase it for one person or as many as they want, and they would go through self-paced in their own home. The tools for success, and I will be getting into this a little more deep, but this is a brief overview. There is the workbook. We put receipt organizer. We want participants to have the tools that they need to be successful. We teach the cash envelope system, so they get 10 envelopes, a mechanical pencil, a notepad, and a certificate of achievement. The technology includes the PowerPoints, and they are arranged into 6 one-hour sessions. And so some organizations do one session, 1 hour a week. I've had some organizations do 2 3 hours, 3 2s. And I do have some organizations that do this as a one-day, 6-hour workshop, and they usually provide a meal for that. So what's different about Money and Me compared to other programs? And that is that we try to keep it simple. It deals a lot with life skills and not just finances. So the Money and Me, we talk about meal planning. We have games in there called a food challenge, smart shopping. We teach price per ounce, laundry lessons. This was something that became very clear to me about 18 years ago, and I'll get into that story a little bit more when my daughter was born. But when a person's laundry is out of control, their life feels out of control. And so some of the best things I have helped people with is when they get in control of their laundry, their life gets into control, and then we can help them more with their finances. We also look at habit changes, because if they can change one spending habit or just one thing in their life, that would probably relate to finances. Other programs that I looked at prior to creating this looked at income debt ratio, investments, retirement, and all of those things. And we just wanted to keep this simple. Hold on, the chat box came up and I can't see my screen. There we go. There we go. Another thing that the curriculum does is it addresses different learning styles. And so with my counseling background, I really wanted to bring something that would speak to everybody. So we have the visual part, which is all of the PowerPoints, the auditory, which is the trainer talking through the lessons, reading and writing, so they are encouraged to write in their workbooks, and kinesthetics. We do activities every 10 to 15 minutes that are sprinkled throughout the curriculum. If you look at learning pyramids, lecture, which is most commonly used, is actually when people learn the least, 5%. And then you have reading at 10%, audiovisual, demonstration 30%, and a discussion group is 50%. Many of the activities in the Money and Me program are discussions around savings, what they would do with extra money, the food challenge. Every 10 to 15 minutes there's a stop for a discussion, and you see that discussion is 50% of learning. The
Sarah,
highest, yes.
your slides are not advancing for us.
Oh, okay. Are you still on the keep it simple?
We are.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Thank you for pointing that out. Let me try something. Okay. Do you see the one that says addresses different learning styles?
Yes, thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you. And then we have the learning pyramid, which I went over. The last part of the learning pyramid, which is the highest percentage, is when a person can teach another person. That means they've mastered the skill. Throughout the curriculum, we're always asking people, who do you know that you can teach this to? And we're trying to have them teach each other as they teach themselves, which would show a sign of mastery. So we focus on changing behavior in the program, and we want them to gain an awareness of their own behaviors and how much it is costing them. We do have them choose a behavior that they would like to address, and the trainers teach simple concepts that have long-lasting results. We have the PowerPoint slides, and we also try to teach self-discipline. There's been lots of studies show that when a person has self-discipline, they can do better with their finances, which makes a lot of sense. So what results have we seen so far? I have seen people stop gambling, stop smoking, just becoming a better shopper. We had one woman who stopped buying chips, soda, and renting movies daily at the convenience store save $400 a month. We see people keeping their jobs and teaching their children. And now I'd like to turn it over to Heidi, who has been using this curriculum, and she can talk about how she's using it and the results that she has seen.
Great. I love that slide. That was our second class that got to use Money and Me. So we've been using Money and Me since the fall of 2017. We had learned about it at the conference in St. Louis. So we were excited about that. Our team was really pumped to come back and use it here. We had been using a financial literacy curriculum before, but it was very advanced. It was kind of like Sarah had mentioned in the beginning. So we needed something that really took us back to basics. And so we found that Money and Me works really well. We've had about 50 Getting Ahead graduates go through the Money and Me curriculum, which is amazing. And you'll see here in this slide, they're so excited. We sort of, the package that Sarah puts together we use, and then we give them a little basket to keep all of their things together so they can bring all the materials that they need to make plans for their money owed, and just be prepared when they come to class with that little checklist. So we've had some big success with Money and Me. One of the things that really worked well for us, the adults that were going through, a lot of them were using Job and Family Services here for different things, and they'd been talking about it at Job and Family Services. So we were contacted saying, what is this Money and Me that you're using? And so they were able to work with us to facilitate with their summer youth program. So our Job and Family Services pays for summer youth here, and we partner with Goodwill to facilitate. So we do a couple, once a month, we do a 2-day session, so 2 3-hour sessions. And we use that over the summer with youth ages 14 to 17. And the funny thing with that is they really, at the end of the summer, said that was their favorite part of the summer youth program, and that nobody had been teaching them this stuff, and it's what they really need. So not only are our adults loving it, so are the youth. Back to the adults, though, I want to share a couple of our stories with the success that they've had. Some of them had not been familiar with the cash envelope system, so that was sort of their biggest takeaway. You know, they're not with a bank or weren't with a bank at the time, so they'd walk around with cash in hand, and it's easy when you're not tracking the cash to see it go away and not know where it went. So the cash envelope system has worked really well. In fact, one of our participants, she started cash envelopes with her kiddos as well. And so they're putting their chore money that they receive in there, and they're sort of balancing their money. And then she's also saving money for the kids as well. So that was sort of eye-opening for her, so she could see where her money was going instead of at the end of the month going, where did it all go? You know, they have a better handle on where that's going. We've also, one of the other big takeaways for a lot of our participants is really that plan for money owed. Sarah does such a great job in the curriculum, making sure that people understand it's not your number one priority when you're in survival mode, but at the end of the day, it is money that you owe, and it's your responsibility to take care of that. So we spend a lot of time talking about, you know, plugging away at that money owed. So taking care of some of those smaller things, and then being able to use the money that you were using on those smaller things to then chip away at the bigger things. And one of our participants, because she was able to make a plan for money owed, she was able to pay some things off, and she was able to really improve her credit score by doing so, and she was able to buy a home for herself and her children. She's a single mom, and having home ownership was important for her. So being able to make that plan, that money owed piece, was big. Another thing that Sarah talks about in the curriculum is sort of facing our things head on. Mail is a big thing for people in low income. They don't open their mail a lot. Sometimes it's because they don't have money to pay those bills. Sometimes they're just afraid. You know, if there's a notice in there and I don't see it, maybe it won't get shut off. But we all know that doesn't work. So one of our folks said just really opening the mail, organizing the mail, really helped her begin to chip away again at some of that money owed, but then also to work on getting her bills caught up and paid on time because she was spending so much money on late fees, which is addressed in the curriculum as well. So many things that I think a lot of people are dealing with on a regular basis, but they just don't have the time to sit down and take a look. So I think what Money and Me does, it really helps us understand our daily lives a little bit better, and then make a plan for those things to really help us get on track. And so most of our individuals really, I mean, they come back. We just shared some stories last night at a focus group, and they were talking about how much the Money and Me really sort of changed the vision for their finances. Before, they were thinking, there's no way I'm going to pay these things off. There's no way I'm going to be able to take the kids on vacation. We just don't have the money. But by making small changes, buying pop every day. We have lots of folks who talk about, buying those pops at the convenience store that are a quick little ice pop or something like that, how they've made the change daily to stop doing that, but maybe buy a cheaper brand of pop at home, still have the pop if that's what they want, but not spend as much money. So this curriculum, the way we use it typically, it's sort of a follow-up to Getting Ahead. Getting Ahead is our core, which most of you are aware of and familiar with. Getting Ahead, we also do transitions here that allows us to look at college and career. And then our third step is the financial literacy piece. And so we run Money and Me. We do 3 2-hour sessions. And it's really before they graduate from Getting Ahead, they finish up transitions in Money and Me before they get their certificates. So it's been successful that way for us. They're used to coming to the classes a couple nights a week. So the 2-hour time schedule works for them. It's what they're used to. And we take an extra day, so like a fourth day, to follow up with any questions or help them a little more with the budgeting. There are lots of things that they do, sort of they get started in class and they can do some at home. But we found if we dedicate one more day, sort of that fourth day, for them to button some things up and actually have the time sitting there where we've provided a meal and childcare. They have that quiet time to work on the budget. That's a lot of the challenge, I think, sometimes is having that time. And so, we're already used to meetings, so we'll do that fourth class just sort of as a follow-up and let them button up any of those things, ask questions that they may have, so that when they leave us, we know that they have a good working budget, they understand the budget, and then they're able to use it. And making sure if they're using the cash envelope system, they have all of their envelopes labeled correctly and they know what to do, when they get paid, how to use that properly, not take all their envelopes out of the house. Another thing that we talk about, because the cash envelope system, could be risky if you live in an unsafe neighborhood, we do talk about possibly getting a safe or something like that within the home that you can lock and put in a safe place, so that if someone comes in, they don't have access to the money in the cash envelope as well. So we've just had great success with it. We enjoy it, our participants enjoy it, and it's very much in layman's terms. I think a lot of times financial literacy, some of the curriculums most of us have looked at, they're in terms that most of us don't understand, and it's very much futuristic, which is great. But when you're just starting out and you're saying, I have $10 left after I pay the bills, should I invest or should I buy groceries for the family? I think the Money and Me is much more simple. It's basic, and it lets people kind of jump in wherever they're at. If I'm just putting a budget together, or if I'm working on a budget already and just trying to make sense of it, I think no matter where you're at, Money and Me just makes sense. And so we continue to use it. I've just had all of my staff certified at the end of last year. So we currently use it, as I said, with Getting Ahead as sort of one of the end classes to sort of put it all together. We also use it with the R rules with our youth, and our success coach with our ERN is using it now on site in the workplace to do trainings within those businesses. So we're using it sort of across the board, and it works. So I think that's really all I have. I shared some of our stories, which are great, and just a little bit on how we're using it. So we'll have questions at the end in case anyone has any, but I think that's really all, unless, Sarah, there's anything else that you want me to share.
No, you did great. Thank you so much, Heidi.
Thanks.
All right. So what I'm going to transition to is I've given you an overview, and now I'm going to show you the content of the program so that you could see. I took screenshots of the workbook pages. If I was sitting right in front of you, I would be able to show you and you can feel and touch it, but this is the next best thing. So there are 6 sessions with the PowerPoint, and I explained they were approximately an hour long, and that includes the discussions. And there are actually 8 sections in the workbook, but the first 6 sessions correspond with the PowerPoint, and they really work hand in hand. So I'm going to go through the workbook with you so that you can see the worksheets. We start with the income and spending worksheet, and we try to make it, I added graphics to make it user-friendly and not so scary. If you look down under money owed, in other curriculums, what I noticed is that they use the word debt. And when I was teaching the classes, I would say, how many of you have debt? And more often than not, I would get blank stares or nobody would raise their hand. But if I asked the question, how many of you owe money to a payday loan, a friend or family member, medical expense, student loan, many of them did owe money, but unless it was a credit card debt, they didn't consider that debt. A few other changes just that are in comparison to other curriculums is I've often seen dry cleaning, and here we have laundry. I've seen babysitting as an expense, and more often than not, it's an income for low-income families. And we also then just have extra stuff. At one point in time, I called it fun stuff, but after, if you've been a smoker for a while or you have a problem drinking and you're spending money on alcohol or even gambling, that's no longer fun. And so we talk about cutting out extra stuff, but we don't want them to necessarily give up fun stuff as they go through things. We have a savings worksheet, and this is actually discussion. When they get to the worksheets, most of them are discussions, and on the PowerPoint slide, it will say turn to this page and work on it individually for a few minutes, then work on it in a small group, and then the facilitator brings it back to a large group discussion. So just why should you save? What are things to save for? What would special purchases be? And they would go through the worksheet themselves. Needs versus wants. We want them to start identifying what their needs are and what their wants are. And again, the facilitator should be encouraging discussion and not answering it for the participants. How much do you spend in a year? This, oops, oh, I didn't put the right picture in, but the concept is we have them figure out what is something they're purchasing every day, every month, and every week, and we give them the formulas to look at how much it costs. So as Heidi said, and this is a big one I've seen, people that are purchasing soda in the small containers at a convenience store, it can add up to quite a bit of money. And cigarettes at $7 a package. If they are smoking daily, and so you take 7 times 365, that's $2,555 a year. And many of them haven't done that math, and we give them the formulas to do it, and then they have quite the shocker at the end. The second session is on responsibility. And so we want to talk about developing healthy relationships. We want them to have a support system. We talk about brushing and flossing their teeth twice a day. This came when I had a dentist become a trainer with me, and he said, do you know how many health problems would be avoided if people just brushed and flossed twice a day? I do have some organizations that have reached out to dental offices in their local area, and they get dental floss and toothbrushes donated, and then they give that out to participants, which is fun. Checking your car, if they do have a vehicle, I would say how much would it cost to replace an engine compared to how much it costs for regular oil changes. And then laundry. We do an entire session on laundry, and as I stated in the beginning, this was very eye-opening to me. I have a daughter who has Down syndrome, and she will be 18 this year. And when she was born, she was hospitalized 7 times her first year of life. I had a 4-year-old at the time and 3 stepchildren. And I was just drowning in my household chores, just basic living skills and all that you need to care for a family. And I called one of my friends and she said, Sarah, how is your laundry? And I was like, oh, it's horrible. It's in piles. It's everywhere. And she said, what I want you to do is today wash all your clothes and get them put away. And I did that. I did the 5 processes, which is sort, wash, dry, fold, put away. And at the end of the day, I felt in more control of my life. Now, my situation hadn't changed. I still had a special needs daughter, a 4-year-old, and 3 stepchildren, but I felt in more control. So I was developing this curriculum. I thought, oh, all I need to do is help people get in control of their laundry. And then I recognized that this is very challenging for low-income people. If they are utilizing a laundromat, they have to save up quarters, they have to find transportation, they might be juggling young children. And so we want to give them strategies for getting more in control of their laundry, and that is done throughout the curriculum. So we have things to do, and so we have them put together a schedule of their daily responsibilities, weekly responsibilities, and their monthly responsibilities. We have them plan ahead. If they're employed, we want them to have a backup plan if they need help with transportation, they get sick, or their children get sick. And we want them to be a good employee. So we do a lot of discussions around what can they do to be good employees. Are they a saver or spender? Here we look at their past, present, and future. And so we ask them, did their parents talk to them about money? Were their parents savers or spenders? What are they? And then what do they want to do for the future? And what can they teach children to do in the future? Healthy or unhealthy habits. This worksheet, they just look at different habits, a general discussion on habits. And then that ends the end of session 2, and we jump into session 3, smart shopping. I was very surprised with how many people did not understand price per ounce. And so we do a lot of comparison shopping. We talk about shopping at thrift stores. We even talk about how soda costs less when it's in large containers and at the back of the store when it might be warm, where it costs more at the front of the store where it's cold. And we do talk about drinking water. We give them a lot of different ideas. We talk about budget building, writing things down every time that they purchase, and they get a notepad for recording their spending. We give them cleaning recipes. So if a person is on food stamps with vinegar, baking soda, and lemon juice, they can make their own cleaning products, and they can purchase those 3 items with food stamps. This starts to help people to get into creative problem solving if they didn't feel they could clean because they couldn't afford cleaning products. Maybe now that they can do that. Health tips, so just eating healthy and low-cost exercise. We do a lot on meal planning, and we do a food challenge where in the PowerPoint slides, it gives them 1 ingredient, and they get into small groups, and for 1 minute, they think of how many recipes they can come up with for that 1 ingredient. One of the ingredients we have them do is chicken, and so if chicken was on sale, they could buy a lot of chicken, but how many different ways they could make meals. We talk to them about how their feelings affect their spending. People shop when they're angry, when they're mad, and when they're happy. So there's lots of things. All of those 3 sessions are done before we dive into the plan for money owed, and then the 5th session is the budget. We want them to start getting an idea of how much money they owe, if they owe money, and so they need to create a money owed list. We absolutely want them to put down friends or family that they might owe money to, and even though it may be a 0% interest rate, we want them to restore relationships with those people, which to me is more valuable than the interest. So they put together a money owed list, and from that, they would create a payment plan. I saw one of the questions, and I'll go ahead and answer it now, Dave Ramsey. This is based on the Dave Ramsey debt snowball technique. And when I first started teaching, I was using visual aids of snowballs, but I was actually losing the audience, because when you create a snowball, you're building something big. And when you're eliminating debt, you're trying to make something small. And so I changed all of the visuals in the PowerPoints to actually be chipping away at rocks. I do not want to minimize that eliminating debt, and we actually call it money owed in the curriculum, is hard work. But they do need to be consistent, and they need a plan, but they can get it done. We also want them to create a plan for extra money. So this could be tax income refund checks. We've had some people receive inheritances, and we want them to think about it before it actually gets to their pocket. We have a section on boundaries and how they need to create boundaries around their money. Do they have poor boundaries and they're constantly asking people for money, or are people asking them, and what they can do to have boundaries around their money and even their own spending? That ends session 4, and we dive into session 5. So what I want everyone here to see is we've now done 4 hours of content, which was building a foundation to talk about a budget, because so many participants don't feel that they can do a budget, but when they realize they can be better shoppers, they can record what they're spending, they have an idea where their money is going, they are now ready to build a budget. We have them start with a calendar, and so we have a template here that they would write when their money comes in and when their bills are due. And we also talk a lot about late fees and how to avoid late fees. This is the budget worksheet, and there's lots of little envelopes on here to show them when they get a check, they need to decide where each dollar is going to go. And so the 10 categories that we saw on the beginning of the income and spending worksheet are listed here. This worksheet was designed whether they get one paycheck a month, they get weekly paychecks, or there's multiple people in the household that might be getting money. And we also talk about how food stamps is also income as well, so that if they start earning more money and the food stamps would go away, they need to know how much they would need to replace. We do teach the cash envelope system in the money kit. They get 10 envelopes. One of the experiential activities we do is we have them write on the outside of the envelope as well as the inside of the envelope as a positive reinforcement, but it turns into the experiential activities that we talked about for addressing different learning styles. Here's a spending record, oops, I see a typo there, by category. If they are utilizing a bank account, they need to use these worksheets to know how much money would be left in a category. If they are using the cash envelope system, they just would need to open the envelope and look at it. But we wanted to give people that are using checking accounts a strategy to keep track of what's left in each category. And the last session is take control. And so here's where we get into some habit changes. The first thing we want them to do is I can change. And so they think of one habit that they want to change, and we give them different strategies to work on that habit. The PowerPoint, each question that you see has a PowerPoint slide that corresponds to that. Fun activities, we want to give them strategies that are low cost or no cost activities. And so we provide them with 20, and then one of the activities we have them do is think of 20 on their own. They can cut them out and put them in a basket and pull them out to do fun things with their kids. And the way we leave participants is other ways to be successful. And so many times we measure success in terms of how much money a person has, but we want them to think of other ways. So relationships, throughout the curriculum, we want to encourage positive relationships. Influential success, are they an encourager to others? Do other people like being around them? And then spiritual success. There is a Christian edition which uses scripture. This one is called Our Words of Wisdom, which has inspirational quotes. But who do they spend time with? What books are they reading? What music do they listen to? And we want them to look at the spiritual side of themselves. There are 2 more sections in the workbook, and so we have the wisdom section, which is all of the inspirational quotes, which were on the PowerPoint slides, and then an information section with all of the tools that we gave them. They're referenced in the information section. There's a follow-up page if people are going to get a mentor, they can utilize that. There's an exit survey, and so those are the types of things in the information section. I'm going to transition to show everybody a PowerPoint. Let's see how we're doing on time, so that you can see what that looks like, and hopefully we can. Okay. Did everybody's screen change to session 1 reality check?
Yes.
Okay. So this is what is given to the to the trainers that go through the training and to the organizations that they can use. And it's not advancing. I was doing that before. Let me try something else. Let's see if it advances here. Okay. So a trainer just needs to walk through the PowerPoint, and it will tell them exactly which page number to go to and activities. This is an icebreaker warm-up activity in session 1, and we have them get to know somebody they don't know and introduce each other.
Mary, it did not change.
Okay. Anything there?
There.
Yes.
It says, welcome,
Okay.
thank you for coming.
So this is just reminders to the trainers to walk through so that the audio part of the presentation is done when trainers just have to walk through the slides. Now mine's not advancing. Let's see. Are you using workbooks and money kits?
Yes.
Okay, hopefully we will advance. So this is just letting the participants know what they are going to receive. It gives an overview of what they're going to learn. And we let them know that there will be a lot of discussion groups, and we want them to limit the groups to 3 to 5 people. Everyone is encouraged to share, and they can take notes, and then the trainer will join everybody into a large group discussion. We let them know there is a plan for their life. This is one of our inspirational quotes. Do your plans include a way to prosper you and your family, which will not bring harm to your family? We need to learn to make wise choices. Who should make a budget? Everyone. And we encourage families to work together. And what I want everybody on the call to notice is that we try to use a lot of pictures in the PowerPoints to be engaging and applicable to what they are doing. If you think back to that learning pyramid where the greatest amount of learning happens when you're teaching somebody else, we want them to think of who they can teach. The first thing we have them do to get started is find their income information, receipts, bills, money order stubs. And I love this graphic because it's somebody sitting on a floor with no furniture in their home. And that could be very realistic for people. Once they found their information, we want to help them get organized, so it can be in a box, the receipt organizer that they're receiving, and it will help them when they work on their income and spending worksheet. What is a budget? It's a plan for their money, a list of income and spending, and it's a tool. 3 steps to building a budget. We want them to see how much money they receive and how they are currently spending their money. So that's where the notepad comes into place, and the income and spending worksheet, and the activities. How much are you spending on a regular basis? Building a budget. They need to write down each time they receive money, and they're going to decide how they're going to spend the money. and that relates to the cash envelope system. And we relate it to being at a mall. What I have tried to do throughout the curriculum is each analytical concept I try to take to a concrete concept. And so if they're at a mall and they want to know where to go, they might need to look at a map. That's the exact same thing as a budget. They need to know where they currently are, and the budget will help them with where they're going to go. Then we go over the income and spending worksheet, and you got to see that in the workbook. The first thing they will do is complete the monthly income section. So we have them write how much they are receiving, their spouse, or if they're combining a budget with another person in a household, a family member or roommate, we have that option as well on the worksheet. We look at the 10 categories where people spend money, and again, lots of graphics to be engaging to the participants. Talk about giving. As the community has provided for you, you should give back to the community. And the subtle suggestion here is many times maybe they've been thinking they are entitled, but we want to get them out of the mindset of receiving to giving. And maybe they can't give monetarily if they are on a financial assistance or minimum wage job. We don't want them to think they have to give monetarily, but they can give back through their time and their talents. We have them think about expenses related to housing. We do put phone on here if they still have a landline and they also have a cell phone. That might be one area they're able to choose between their phones. If they are not paying for housing, but it's something they want to do in the future, we want them to start thinking of that category and putting money aside to get ready. How much do they spend on food and home supplies? If they are receiving food stamps, this is where they would put that amount. Transportation, and maybe it's public transportation. Money owed, and so it could be to people and all those other places. I'm going through this quickly, but I want everybody to see so we can more time. Savings, and here's our inspirational quote, the words of wisdom. And here's where we will take a break and go into a discussion. And so there's probably been 10 to 15 minutes of lecture, and the trainer will pause and they say, turn to page 13, break into small groups. They do the activity for approximately 5 minutes on their own, a small group, and then a large group. And I will say this is where we see the real learning taking place. It's important for the trainer to stop, pause, have the discussion, and then return back to the PowerPoint. So imagine 15 minutes has gone by and we've done that activity. We review why should they save, and the participants came up with these on their own usually. If not, you can just point out to them. If they are saving for special things, what does that look like? Birthdays, electronics, appliances. And then their future. It could be a new home, their education, or their children's education. Then we take them back to the income and spending worksheet. And so we talk about child expenses. How many of you realize that children cost money? Down in the bottom right corner, you'll see something that has this story. Trainers are encouraged to put together stories ahead of time related to the topics. And so when they come to that, then it reminds them that they can share a personal story, which is a lot of fun for participants to hear and just to develop rapport with everybody. Then we have the worksheet, how much child expenses are. Important about wearing clothes, which is a need versus a want. And so we go through that. Later in the Smart Shopping, we talk a lot about shopping at thrift stores. Clothing and personal items. Here is where we put the laundry, body care, and I actually put cell phone under this because it has become an item that people really, it's important for people to have cell phones. They don't need to be spending a lot of money on iPhones and other things, but it comes under clothing and personal items. Medical, dental, non-emergencies. So if they have something they're paying for every month, the copay, prescriptions, they can put it here. And the extra stuff is where we can see them making the most changes. We do address gambling under smart shopping. We do address cigarettes and alcohol and how much that costs throughout the curriculum. The last step of the spending worksheet is to have them take their monthly income, subtract their spending, and see what the difference is. And we let them know if it's a negative number, they will need to make some changes. Then we actually stop at that point in time, and they will go to their worksheet on page 11, and they're going to do the income and spending worksheet. We just do this as an individual activity because it can be private and sensitive information, but we want them to get started. So as they have questions, the trainer, and if you have an assistant trainer, are present to help them work through the worksheet. Then we go to needs versus wants, and they will go to that worksheet. What is a need versus a want? No one can serve both their needs and their wants. If they serve their needs, if they serve their wants, then their needs will suffer. And then we have them do the discussion and activity. So they would go to the appropriate page in their workbook and they work through it. And again, small group and large group discussion. How much do you spend in a year? And we have them identify things that they might be spending on a daily basis, weekly and monthly, and give them the formula to do that. And we give them examples. So cigarettes, going to the movies every week for 4 people at an average $11 a ticket, or monthly we put in cable TV and how much that would cost. Then we have them identify a place that they are currently doing and complete that worksheet. And then that's the end of session 1. So there are 5 more PowerPoint presentations available to see, but that's just a brief snippet of what they look like. I'm going to go back to my other slideshow, hopefully, and we'll finish webinar. So, and I see some questions coming up, so I will be getting to the cost very shortly. Did it transition to the 2 sections in the workbook for everybody?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So here's the pricing. We do an organization bundle, and so it's train the trainer online for 1 person, 10 workbooks and kits, and we do a 1-year license subscription for the organization, and that nonprofit price is $619. 2 trainers, 20 workbooks and kits. The nonprofit is $1,118. And then for 3 trainers, 30 workbooks, the profit goes up, or the nonprofit price is $1,617. If you just wanted to order a workbook and kit to preview, it's $35 nonprofit price. If you need customized pricing, you say, you know, maybe we need 50 workbooks and kits, but we're only going to have 1 trainer, I would just work out the cost for you, and you can email me for that. And that's my contact information. And I think that's the end of my slideshow. So I'm available to do questions now.
Thanks you to both Sarah and Heidi for that. One question was, how do you measure success? What are the success indicators that you use?
What we have done is look at behavior changes. With other financial curriculums, it was usually looking at how much a person has reduced their debt and how much they have increased their savings. While both of those are great measures, sometimes we need to break it down to be a little bit lower at this point in time, and we look at a behavior. So we've seen people stop smoking. We've seen behavior changes just in the purchase of soda. And as Heidi said, maybe they're not purchasing soda every day at the convenience store. They're going to the grocery store and getting it into a larger quantity. Um, and all of it relates eventually back to their finances, but sometimes we have to look at the behavior first. And Heidi, are you still on? And do you have, can you share about what you're seeing with the success in the program?
Sure. So behavior obviously is one of it, but we as an agency, we do track sort of our success indicators for getting ahead transitions in financial literacy. We have them in 3 different categories. So we track education, so whether they're going back to get a GED or enrolling in higher education. We also track employment. Are they getting employed, or are they getting a promotion once they go through getting ahead? And then we also track increased financial position. So what we take a look at is before all the programs, because it's sort of a package deal for us. If they join getting ahead, it's mandatory for transitions in financial literacy. So that increased financial position, what that looks like is if they, once they've completed the programs, have they paid off debt, whether it be having loans paid off or having driver's license reinstated because they've paid off some fines. Do they owe to the courts? So we measure that sort of thing. So we are measuring an increased financial position. So I don't know if that helps. And if anyone's interested in that, I can share. I have a survey that would give us a pre and post. So we fill one out before they go through all the programs, and then we do it in 6-month intervals after they complete the programming, so we can see if those things have improved. Another piece of that is if they were receiving any financial assistance or food assistance, we track to see if that goes down as they begin to manage their money a little bit better or get better paying jobs. So that sort of goes into our piece of that, is that increased financial position.
The facilitator training is done online, correct?
Yes, the train the trainer is done online. We really want the one-on-one, or not the one-on-one, but the personal contact between the trainer and the participants to happen in person. The training for participants is not online.
Okay, but the training and the process is done in a group setting.
For the participants,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
So what about clients that have issues with transportation? Have you, can you talk about the pros and cons of doing this in a group delivery versus maybe on a one-on-one house visit?
I have had people do it one-on-one. The drawback is just you don't get the discussion and kind of the support system of when people are not able to be in a group setting. The content is still very applicable to them, and it can absolutely help them. They're just missing the discussion portion of the curriculum. And but to me, something is better than nothing. So if people need to go do home visits and do it one-on-one, they can absolutely do it that way.
Okay. Is the spiritual portion required?
It's not required. There's one tiny section in the workbook, and it was on the other ways to be successful, and it just said spiritual success. What books do you read? What music do you listen to? And do you spend time in any prayer meditation? And there is one slide that relates to that. And so if an organization doesn't feel comfortable with doing that, they can choose to not do that if they would like. It's in the workbook and it's one slide, but they could skip over it if they need to.
Okay. What about using this in Canada?
Ooh, I'd be open for figuring that out. Sure.
All right, there you go, Julie.
All these email addresses down. Would it be easier if I put my email address? I don't want to miss someone. Would it be easier if I put my email address in, and anyone who wants, it looks like a couple requesting the survey, if you would just send me an email in case I miss somebody?
And I think I put yours. Let me get back to where I had your picture. There we go.
Okay. That way, I've got a couple, but I wasn't able to keep up and write all of those down. Or Ruth, is there a way for me to get all of those? I want to make sure I get that survey out if people are interested in that. And I don't want to miss.
I think the best way is for them to email you at coordinator@Marion Matters.
Okay.
Sarah, how long is that facilitator training?
It's approximately 6 hours. There are several videos and some quizzes and questions on there. So a person could do it realistically in one day, or it's very similar to the regular training, the Money and Me for participants.
Okay, so it's self-paced and online?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So Kathy, we will post this recording on the website so you can have access to this recording. And then if you're interested in more materials, then you can go to Money and Me and see how to purchase them. All right. Anything else? We really appreciate it. So let me just say, we have an annual conference. It's called Addressing the Challenges of Poverty. It's in Indianapolis this year, September 22nd through 24. And there will be sessions like this at the conference, all tools to help you grow your initiative and strategies to reduce poverty. So please take a look at that. It's on the events page of AHA Process if you have that interest and can come in September. But we thank everybody for their questions and for participating. We have Heidi's email there, coordinator@Marion Matters. And then Sarah, if you want to go to your slide.
Sure. It's at the end. I'll do that.
If you can come to conference, please do. This will be my 7th year at conference, and I learn something new every year. So if you can make it, I would suggest that you come. So many great ideas, so many great people, and really those connections that you make, that's what really moves your initiative forward, because I know I call on the people I've met at conference on a regular basis. So that's just my 2 cents.
So Nancy, the program is done in groups, and Heidi does hers in 2-hour sessions 4 times. Heidi, what's the largest group you've had?
We limit ours to our Getting Ahead group. 20 is the most we've had in one session, which is one of our highest. We typically 15 is like where we want to keep it, because if it's much higher than that, the groups sometimes get in their little side conversations. So I would say 20 is a good max.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Well, thanks, Sarah. And thank you, Heidi, for sharing your expertise. And we all know that financial literacy is a needed component in our community work. So we really appreciate your time and energy. And for each of you that participated, you can look for the recording of this sometime next week. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.